I thought Mindanao might be dangerous, but instead I found one of the most breathtaking, welcoming places I've ever been. This is the side of Mindanao most foreigners never get to see. They left me alone. Yeah. Like a nice hot bath. Before coming to Mindanao, I just didn't know what to expect. Like many people, I had heard all the headlines, but what I found was totally different. Right away, it felt richer. There were cars on the roads, there were more expensive motorbikes going around everywhere, and everybody was driving much, much faster. The motorbike I own, the ADV 160, is rare in Bohol. In Mindanao, it was everywhere. You could really feel the difference in pace and prosperity. But the weather really caught me off guard. I'm used to the cooler mountain air of Bohol, where the humidity is high but the temperature is lower. Temperatures here in Bohol are fairly manageable, but in Mindanao it was high humidity and high temperature. It really was wet season. I felt like somebody had cranked up the heat by 5 or 10 degrees hotter than I'm used to, and the humidity was next level. In Bohol, it's the start of dry season, but in Mindanao, it was well and truly established in the wet season. When the rain came, I ended up on unpaved roads. It was way more slippery than I was used to, and some areas there really flood. And then there were the mountains. They towered over everything. They were much bigger than I was used to. And I live in a mountain province. It completely transformed the scenery. It was beautiful beyond words. And the islands in the northeast of Mindanao, they were truly spectacular. I'd not expected that. Everybody goes to Surigao to have a look at the beautiful area, and they never talk about the northeast of Mindanao. And it was so stunning. Nobody told me how picturesque this coast was. One of the questions I had before going to Mindanao was, is it truly safe there? And honestly, I can say a resounding yes. It is completely safe where I was. And I went off the beaten path. I went into places that most foreigners would never even dream of going. And yet it was so safe. I felt very, very safe amongst the people. They were very caring for me and they looked out for me. I never felt unsafe. In fact, it was like the Mindanaoans just gathered me around and just made sure that I felt very, very, very safe. There's something in the way that the Mindanaoans carry themselves. It's humble and yet strong, and as a foreigner you feel like you're in good hands. So still feeling like I needed to be a little bit cautious, I went to this spring, this hot spring, and the locals there just helped me to know the wonderful places around, They told me, oh, you should go here and you should go here. And without their help, I would not have gone to this amazing, out-of-the-way waterfall that I don't think a foreigner has ever been to before. This was a rare treat. So in these hot springs, we spent maybe an hour and a half there just soaking in this amazing hot water. It was like a hot bath. It was just wonderful. And it didn't leave your clothes smelling of sulfuric acid. It was just really, really nice. Honestly, they treated me with quiet dignity and respect, and I loved that. I also loved how everything felt really close. I could just go down to the shops. In 10 minutes I'd be there, and 10 minutes later I'd be back. It felt good. Good food, good shops. Back home, it's more like 45 minutes to get anywhere. That alone made a huge difference. One of the really big things was how cheap everything was. Food was much cheaper in Mindanao. So bangus was like 200 peso per kilo, whereas here in Bohol, it's about 250 per kilo. Fresh fish that was back home was nearly 500 peso per kilo, was only about 350 to 380 per kilo. And there were fresh oysters. Oh my goodness, they were amazing. Even petrol was 10 peso cheaper than it was in Bohol. So in Bohol, we basically have 63 to 65 peso per litre. In Mindanao, it was somewhere between 53 and 55 for premium petrol. The thing is, though, that I really never saved money on driving because I would always drive a lot further in Mindanao than I would in Bohol. And of course, in Mindanao, you can go a lot faster than in Bohol. Everybody travelled at 80 kilometres an hour down the main road. Yeah, the roads were great until they vanished. When the rain came and I ended up on back roads, it was way slipperier than I have imagined. Now, not everything is wonderful. In Bohol, if I go to the local shops or I go to the shops that are 15-20 minutes away, I might have one person every few months ask me for some money. Beggars saying, give me some money. I am not rich at all. Everybody thinks a foreigner is rich. The first time I went into the shops at Mindanao, I had 15 people come up to me begging for money, and this was quite confronting. It certainly wasn't what I was used to. I think there's an assumption that if you're a foreigner, you're rich. And that certainly isn't the case with me. But here's what struck me about the locals. The locals were not happy with those people begging as well. I saw them step in and say something to these beggars. Maybe I stood out as an easy target, but the locals clearly did not believe that this kind of behaviour was appropriate. And they stepped in and helped me. And whilst this was a bit of a shock to my experience in Mindanao, it certainly didn't taint my experience of the Mindanao people. If anything, it shows how much Mindanao people care for foreigners to come in. It leads me to another story. And this is a very positive story, but I did something silly. I left on my motorbike my phone, and I went in and did some shopping, and about 10 minutes later I realised my phone was not on me, and panic began to set in, and I began to walk very quickly towards my motorbike, very concerned. And as I got there, these guys, they had been guarding my phone. They said, Sir, your phone. They had been watching my phone, making sure nobody had taken it. That is true Filipino hospitality. That was not something they had to do. That was amazing. I wonder how many other foreigners have stories like that. If you've got a story like that, let me know in the comments. I'd really, really like to know. And while you're at it, hit that like button. It will really help. Now, what is the first thing that I would like to tell tourists when they come to Mindanao? Don't believe the hype, the media hype that says Mindanao is a dangerous place. There are certain areas that I just wouldn't go to as a foreigner in Mindanao. Not yet, maybe one day. But where I was, they were 15 or 18 hours drive away. So they were nowhere near where I was. So you've just got to make sure you stay in the right areas. And it's so easy to do because it's most of Mindanao that is the right area. Most of Mindanao is very, very, very safe. In fact, Davao is the safest city in the Philippines. And I've got to say, if it's the safest city in the Philippines, I feel incredibly safe in the Philippines already. So that speaks very highly for that city. The truth is that I feel safer in the Philippines as a whole than I ever did in Melbourne. Do not believe the hype that Mindanao is a really, truly dangerous place. It is a wonderful place.